I stared at my phone screen, reading Amanda's text message for the third time, while my 16-year-old grandson Tyler and 14-year-old granddaughter Emma finished their homework at the kitchen table. "Mom, don't forget to finish the leftovers in the fridge." The words felt like ice water in my veins, not because of what she said, but because of what I had just learned 20 minutes earlier. My entire family had gone to celebrate Amanda's promotion at Riverside Steakhouse, the expensive restaurant downtown where reservations cost a fortune. Without me, again, while I sat home babysitting for the third weekend in a row, they were toasting her success with champagne and prime rib. The children had mentioned it casually, unaware they were breaking my heart into 1,000 pieces. My hands trembled as I set the phone down on the granite countertop that I had helped pay for when Brandon and Amanda bought this house 3 years ago. The realization hit me like a physical blow to the chest. This was not the first time I had been deliberately excluded from family celebrations. I walked slowly to my bedroom, the guest room that had become my permanent residence since my husband Frank died 2 years ago. Sitting on the edge of the quilted bedspread, I forced myself to remember the past 6 months with brutal honesty. The family barbecue in July where Amanda sweetly asked if I could watch the house while they celebrated Brandon's birthday. Emma's school graduation party, where I was told it was adults only, even though other grandparents attended. The shopping trip for Tyler's school supplies, where Amanda insisted I needed to stay home to prep for guests who never materialized. Each memory felt like a puzzle piece clicking into place, forming a picture I had been too trusting to see. I remembered overhearing Amanda on the phone with her sister last month, complaining about how exhausting it was having Brandon's mother around all the time. She had laughed when she said, "Sometimes I feel like I married both of them." Walking back to the kitchen, I noticed Amanda's leather journal sitting on the breakfast bar. It was open to a page dated 3 weeks ago, the handwriting clearly Amanda's neat script. My heart pounded as I read the words that would haunt me forever. "Need to establish clearer boundaries with Carolyn. Brandon agrees she's becoming too involved in family decisions, planning to create situations where she chooses to step back naturally." The journal entry continued with calculated precision. "Tonight told her the dinner was canceled due to restaurant mix-up. Really just want family time without her constant input on everything. She means well but doesn't understand modern parenting. Brandon thinks if we're subtle, she'll start spending more time at the senior center or with her own friends." I flipped through more pages, each entry like a knife twisting deeper. Amanda had documented every interaction, every suggestion I made about the children's activities, every time I offered to cook dinner or help with household tasks. She had turned my love and desire to be useful into evidence of overstepping boundaries. The final entry I could bear to read was from last week. "Carolyn keeps trying to host family dinners on Sundays. Need to gently redirect this. Maybe suggest she's tired and should rest more. Brandon worried about hurting her feelings but agrees we need our independence. We'll start planning more activities that naturally exclude her." I closed the journal with shaking hands, understanding finally that my exclusion tonight was not accidental. It was orchestrated. Amanda had systematically planned to push me to the margins of my own family's life, making it appear as though I was choosing isolation, while she played the role of the caring daughter-in-law, who was simply respecting my need for space. The children looked up from their homework as I returned to the kitchen. "Grandma Carolyn, are you okay?" Emma asked, her green eyes full of concern. "You look pale." I managed to smile, not wanting to burden them with adult problems. "Just tired, sweetheart. Tell me about your math homework." But inside, I felt something fundamental shifting. The trust I had placed in Amanda, the gratitude I felt toward her for marrying my son and giving me these beautiful grandchildren, was crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. For the first time since Frank's death, I began to question whether my presence in this household was truly wanted, or if I had become an unwelcome guest overstaying her welcome. The next morning, while Amanda took the children to soccer practice, I was tidying Brandon's home office when I noticed his iPad lying open on the desk. The message notification screen was filled with texts between him and Amanda from the past several months. My conscience wrestled with my curiosity for only a moment before the need to understand my situation won. The conversations I read shattered my heart completely. These were not the words of a son who loved his mother but was being gently guided by his wife. These were the complaints of a man who viewed me as a burden he was obligated to carry. "Mom's getting on my nerves," Brandon had written just 2 weeks ago, "always hovering when I'm trying to help Tyler with homework. Acting like her way is the only way to handle everything." Amanda's response was even more devastating. "She means well, but doesn't understand boundaries. Maybe we should start planning some activities that give us family space." "Good idea," Brandon replied. "Mom won't mind. She understands." I scrolled through months of messages, each one revealing more of their true feelings. Brandon complaining about my cooking. "Wish she'd stop making those heavy casseroles. The kids need healthier options." Amanda agreeing. "Maybe hint that we're trying to eat lighter? Shell get the message." Brandon expressing frustration about my advice regarding the children. "Told Mom that Tyler doesn't need to practice piano every day. She gave me that look like ruining his future. So tired of walking on eggshells." Most painful was a conversation from last month where Brandon had actually suggested excluding me from family activities. "Maybe we should do some stuff just the four of us," he wrote. "Give Mom a break from always having to entertain or help. She might enjoy having the house to herself." I found the planning for last night's celebration, and the betrayal cut even deeper. Brandon had suggested it specifically. "Let's celebrate your promotion, just us. Mom will understand. She's been looking tired lately anyway." Amanda had responded. "Perfect. I'll tell her we're having a quiet dinner at home and suggest she rest. She'll never know." Reading those words felt like physical pain radiating through my chest. The son I had sacrificed everything for, who I had supported through college when money was tight, who I had helped emotionally and financially through his difficult divorce from his first wife, who I had welcomed back into my home when he needed to rebuild his life, now saw me as an inconvenience to manage, rather than a mother to cherish. I remembered all the ways I had tried to help this family, moving in after Frank died not just because I was lonely, but because Brandon and Amanda had asked for help with childcare and household expenses, contributing my Social Security check each month toward groceries and utilities, using my savings to help with the children's school expenses and extracurricular activities, cooking, cleaning, and providing free babysitting so they could have date nights and social time. Yet here was evidence that every kindness I offered was being discussed as an intrusion. Every suggestion I made about anything from meal planning to the children's activities was being characterized as overstepping. My presence in their lives, which I thought was appreciated and needed, was apparently something they were strategizing how to minimize. The most heartbreaking revelation was how naturally the deception came to them. These were not conversations filled with guilt about excluding me. They were practical discussions about managing an inconvenient situation. I had become a problem to be solved rather than a family member to be included. I closed the iPad and sat in Brandon's leather chair, surrounded by family photos that suddenly felt like evidence of a life I had misunderstood. In every picture, I was slightly apart from the group, positioned as though I were a visiting relative, rather than someone who belonged at the center of this family's story. The woman in these photos looked happy and included, but now I could see the truth behind Amanda's smiles and Brandon's casual arm around my shoulders. I had been living in a carefully constructed illusion, believing I was valued and wanted when I was actually being tolerated and managed. That afternoon, while Brandon worked in the garage and Amanda prepared dinner, I decided to organize my personal paperwork. If my living situation was as precarious as it seemed, I needed to understand my financial position clearly. Frank had always handled our investments and banking, and since his death, I had relied heavily on Brandon and Amanda's guidance for managing my affairs. I spread my documents across the dining room table: bank statements, Social Security information, Frank's life insurance papers, and the investment account summaries. As I began reviewing the statements chronologically, a cold dread settled in my stomach. My savings account, which had contained nearly $80,000 after Frank's life insurance settlement, showed a current balance of less than $22,000. At first, I assumed there must be some mistake, but as I traced through the monthly statements, I found a pattern of transfers I did not recognize or remember authorizing. Small amounts at first, $500 in March, $750 in April. By summer, the transfers had grown larger. $1,500 in July, $2,000 in August. Each transfer was labeled Household Expenses or Family Planning Fund and authorized by a signature I did not remember making. With growing panic, I called the bank from the kitchen phone, keeping my voice low so the children would not overhear. The customer service representative confirmed my worst fears. "Mrs. Patterson, according to our records, you added Amanda Patterson as a co-signer on this account in February. She's been making regular transfers to your joint household account, as well as withdrawals for various family expenses." "What joint household account?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "The account opened in March under both your names for family financial planning." Mrs. Amanda Patterson explained it was for managing your care expenses and household contributions. I had no memory of opening any such account, but as the representative read the details, I remembered Amanda bringing me papers to sign during those grief-stricken weeks after Frank's funeral. She had explained they were estate planning documents to make managing my finances easier during my mourning period. Trusting her completely, I had signed whatever she placed in front of me. "Can you tell me the total amount that's been transferred to this account?" I managed to ask. "Over the past 10 months, approximately $58,000 has been moved from your personal savings to the joint account, with an additional $12,000 withdrawn directly for various family expenses. $70,000, nearly my entire life savings, accumulated over 45 years of marriage and careful planning for my old age. Money Frank and I had saved for emergencies, for unexpected medical expenses, for the legacy we wanted to leave our grandchildren. But the financial betrayal went even deeper. My Social Security checks, which I had thought were being deposited to help with household expenses, were being redirected to this joint account where Amanda had equal access. For nearly a year, my own income had been funding this family's lifestyle, while I believed I was simply contributing my fair share to household costs. I found the documents Amanda had convinced me to sign, buried in the stack of papers she had helped me organize after Frank's death. Powers of attorney that gave her access to my accounts, beneficiary changes that made her and Brandon joint inheritors of my remaining assets, healthcare directives that gave her decision-making authority over my medical care. Every document was legitimate. Every signature was mine. But they had been obtained through manipulation of my grief and trust. Amanda had not swooped in to steal my money through fraud. She had convinced me to hand it over willingly, by positioning herself as someone trying to help me manage my affairs during a difficult time. The cruelest part was that she had been careful to leave enough money in my accounts for me to feel financially secure while systematically draining everything else. I had been living on an allowance from my own savings, grateful for her help managing my finances, while she and Brandon spent my life savings on their family's improved lifestyle. Looking around the house, I now realized I had largely paid for. Seeing the new furniture and electronics purchased with my money, understanding that the family vacations and restaurant meals I was excluded from were funded by my own savings, I felt a rage building that surprised me with its intensity. But underneath the anger was a deeper pain. I had not just been financially exploited, I had been emotionally manipulated by people I loved and trusted completely. The daughter-in-law who had held my hand at Frank's funeral and promised I would always have a home with them had been calculating how to gain access to my money. The son who had tearfully begged me to move in because they needed me and wanted me close had been planning to take control of everything I owned. When Tyler and Emma returned from school that afternoon, I was sitting at the kitchen table, my financial documents still spread before me. Emma immediately noticed my distressed expression and came to sit beside me. "Grandma Carolyn? You look really upset. Is everything okay?" I looked into her sincere green eyes, so much like her grandfather Frank's, and realized I needed to understand how deep this deception went. Sweetheart, can I ask you something? And will you promise to tell me the truth, even if you think it might upset me? Both children nodded seriously. Tyler put down his backpack and joined us at the table. Do you think I'm getting forgetful or confused about things? Emma and Tyler exchanged a worried glance. Why would you ask that? Tyler said carefully. Because I need to know if what your mother has been telling people about me is true. The children looked uncomfortable, and I realized I was asking them to betray their parents. But I pressed gently. Please. This is important. Has Amanda said things about my memory or my ability to take care of myself? Emma's eyes filled with tears. She tells people you're getting a little confused sometimes because of grieving Grandpa Frank. She says that's why you need help with things like managing money and making decisions. And do you believe that's true? No, Tyler said firmly. You're sharper than most people our age. You help me with calculus, homework, and remember every detail about our schedules and activities. You're not confused about anything. Emma wiped her eyes. Amanda tells people not to ask you complicated questions or talk to you about serious things because it might overwhelm you. She answers the phone when your friends call and tells them you're resting or not feeling up to visitors. My heart sank further. What else, sweetheart? She's been keeping a list. Tyler admitted reluctantly. Writing down any time you seem tired or forget something tiny, like where you put your reading glasses. She showed it to Dad and said she was worried about you. Emma nodded miserably. But Grandma, everyone forgets where they put their glasses, and you're only tired because you do all the cooking and cleaning for this whole family. That's not being confused, that's being overworked. Has Amanda said anything about me needing special care or having to move somewhere else? The children exchanged another look, this one filled with fear. Last month she asked us how we'd feel if you went to live in one of those nice places for older people, Tyler said quietly. She said it might be better for you to be around people your own age, with professional help if you needed it. What did you tell her? We said we'd hate it, Emma said fiercely. We told her you're not old like that, and you're not sick, and we want you to live with us forever. My granddaughter reached for my hand. Grandma, are they trying to make you leave? Before I could answer, Tyler spoke up with surprising maturity. Emma and I have been saving our allowance and birthday money. We have almost $400. If you need to get your own place, we want to help. The innocence and love in their offer broke my heart completely. These children had been watching their parents systematically undermine and exclude me, and they had been powerless to stop it. But they had been preparing to help me in the only way they could. Has Amanda ever moved my things or hidden things from me? I asked. Sometimes, Emma admitted, like when you're looking for your reading glasses and she says she hasn't seen them, but I saw her move them from the kitchen counter to your bedroom, or when you're looking for the TV remote and she says it must be lost, but it's sitting right next to her on the couch. Tyler nodded. And she changes plans without telling you, like last week when you made that big pot of chili for dinner and she ordered pizza instead. Then she acted like you'd forgotten about the pizza order. But there never was one until she called during dinner. I realized Amanda had been creating incidents to support her narrative that I was becoming unreliable and confused. Small acts of manipulation designed to make me question my own memory and competence. Are you scared to tell me these things? I asked gently. Yes, Emma whispered. Amanda said if we worry you about family problems, it could make your grief worse and affect your health. She said protecting your feelings was more important than complaining about little things. These children had been caught in the middle of an adult deception, watching someone they loved being mistreated while being convinced that speaking up would somehow harm me further. Amanda had manipulated not just me, but also Tyler and Emma, using their love for me as a weapon to ensure their silence. Listen to me carefully, I said, taking both their hands. You have done nothing wrong by telling me the truth. In fact, you may have helped me more than you'll ever know. Tyler looked relieved but still worried. Grandma, what are you going to do? For the first time in months, I felt a spark of my old determination returning. I'm going to take care of myself. And I'm going to make sure you children are protected too. That evening, I watched Amanda and Brandon interact with new eyes. Every kind gesture felt calculated. Every expression of concern seemed designed to maintain the illusion that they were caring for me rather than managing me. But now I also saw how they had drawn my grandchildren into their web of deception, making Tyler and Emma complicit in my emotional isolation while convincing them it was for my own good. The following morning, while Amanda took the children to school and Brandon left for work, I made a decision that would change everything. I needed to understand the full scope of what was happening to me, and that meant investigating Amanda's private spaces in a way I had never considered before. Amanda's home office was always off-limits, justified as her workspace where she handled family finances and business correspondence. But armed with the knowledge of my financial exploitation and the systematic manipulation I was experiencing, I felt justified in searching for evidence of their complete plan. The manila folders in her filing cabinet were labeled with typical household categories: utilities, insurance, medical records. But there was one folder that made my blood run cold: estate planning. C. Patterson. Inside that folder was documentation of a conspiracy that exceeded my worst fears. The first document was a medical evaluation dated 6 months ago, signed by Dr. Richard Caldwell, a physician I had never heard of, much less consulted. The evaluation detailed my progressive cognitive decline and increasing inability to make sound financial decisions. It recommended supervised living arrangements and limited access to financial resources. I had never met Dr. Caldwell. I had never been evaluated by anyone except my regular family doctor, Dr. Susan Martinez, who had pronounced me in excellent health just 3 months ago. The next document was even more shocking: a completed application to Sunset Manor Assisted Living, filled out entirely in Amanda's handwriting. The application described me as requiring supervision due to memory issues and confusion, and becoming a danger to herself and others due to poor judgment. It was signed with my forged signature and dated just 1 week ago, but the most devastating discovery was a series of email exchanges between Amanda and a lawyer named Robert Chen, discussing competency proceedings and protective guardianship. The correspondence revealed that Amanda had been building a legal case to have me declared incompetent, with Brandon's full knowledge and participation. Mrs. Patterson's condition has deteriorated significantly since her husband's death, Amanda had written. She frequently forgets important information, makes poor financial decisions, and shows signs of paranoia about family members. We're concerned for her safety and believe professional care is necessary. The lawyer's response outlined the legal process for obtaining guardianship, which would give Amanda and Brandon complete control over my finances, health care, and living arrangements. He had advised them to document all incidents of confusion or poor judgment and to avoid actions that might alert her to your concerns until legal proceedings can begin. I found Amanda's documentation log, a detailed record of every time I had forgotten a small detail, seemed tired, or expressed any opinion she disagreed with. She had turned my normal human moments into evidence of incompetence. March 15. Carolyn couldn't remember where she put her car keys. Found them in the refrigerator. Seems increasingly disoriented. I remembered that day clearly. Amanda had asked me to put away groceries while she answered a phone call. I had absent-mindedly set my keys down in the kitchen while carrying milk to the refrigerator. It was a simple mistake anyone could make, but Amanda had documented it as evidence of mental decline. April 22. Carolyn insisted we had dinner plans with the Hendersons, but no such plans existed, becoming confused about social commitments. But I remembered this incident too. Amanda had mentioned having dinner with the Hendersons, and I had assumed it included me. When I asked about it later, she claimed I had misunderstood. Now I realized she had deliberately created the confusion to document my mistake. Each entry in her log represented a moment when Amanda had manipulated a situation to create evidence against me, then recorded my natural response as proof of my incompetence. The timeline in the folder revealed the calculated nature of their plan. They had been building this case since 1 month after Frank's funeral, when my grief was deepest. and my judgment might have been most vulnerable. Every kind gesture, every offer to help with my finances, every suggestion that I should rest instead of participating in family activities had been part of a strategy to isolate me and gain control of my life. The final document in the folder was a timeline titled Transition Plan. It outlined their intention to have me declared incompetent within the next 2 weeks, with placement at Sunset Manor scheduled for the end of the month. My remaining assets would be transferred to a protective trust managed by Brandon and Amanda for my care. But there was one more folder I had not noticed, labeled Background Research. Inside were printed pages from the internet about elder abuse, financial exploitation, and guardianship fraud. Amanda had researched the exact methods she was using against me, studying how to manipulate the legal system to gain control of an elderly person's life and assets. Most chilling were highlighted sections about maintaining plausible deniability and ensuring the target's cooperation through emotional manipulation. Amanda had not stumbled into this scheme. She had planned and researched it methodically. I realized that tomorrow's celebration dinner, from which I had been excluded, was likely meant as the final family gathering before Amanda initiated her competency proceedings. They were probably toasting not just her promotion, but the success of their long-term plan to take control of my life. Sitting in Amanda's chair, surrounded by evidence of her betrayal, I felt something I had not experienced since Frank's death: clarity and determination. For months, I had questioned my own perceptions and trusted Amanda's guidance over my own instincts. But here was proof that my instincts had been correct all along. I was not losing my mind. I was not becoming a burden. I was being systematically exploited and manipulated by people who saw my love and trust as weaknesses to exploit. But Amanda had made one crucial mistake in her planning. She had assumed I was helpless and had no resources to fight back. She did not know about Dorothy Hartwell, Frank's lawyer, and my dear friend, who had been like family to us for over 20 years. And she had no idea that I had already begun questioning the situation weeks ago. That afternoon, I did something I should have done months earlier. I called Dorothy Hartwell, the attorney who had handled Frank's estate and been our family lawyer for 2 decades. Dorothy was more than a professional advisor. She had been Frank's close friend since college and had become like a sister to me over the years. "Carolyn, I was hoping you'd call," Dorothy said, her familiar voice warm but serious. "I've been concerned about you for weeks." "Dorothy, I think I'm in trouble. Real trouble." "I know, honey. I've been investigating Amanda for the past month." My relief was overwhelming. "You have? Remember when you called me 6 weeks ago asking about those financial documents Amanda wanted you to sign? Something about her tone and the urgency bothered me. I've seen this pattern before, Carolyn." I started making some inquiries. I had forgotten about that call. During one of my increasingly frequent moments of doubt, I had asked Dorothy to explain some paperwork Amanda claimed was necessary for tax purposes. At the time, Dorothy had simply advised me to take my time with any financial decisions, but apparently she had been more suspicious than she let on. "What have you found?" I asked. "Enough to put Amanda behind bars for a very long time. Can you meet me at my office in an hour? And Carolyn, do not tell anyone you're coming to see me." Dorothy's law office was in downtown Springfield, a 20-minute drive from Brandon's house. I told the children I was going shopping and would be back before dinner. Dorothy's conference room was filled with documents, photographs, and legal papers spread across the large mahogany table. "Carolyn, what I'm about to show you is going to be difficult, but I need you to understand the full scope of what's been happening." She started with a background check on Amanda Collins, the name she had used before marrying Brandon. Amanda is not who she claims to be. Her real name is Amanda Sinclair, and she has a criminal history spanning 3 states. Dorothy showed me police reports and court documents. Amanda had been married 4 times before Brandon, always to recently widowed men with significant assets. In each case, she had gained access to financial accounts, manipulated the men into changing their wills and financial arrangements, then either disappeared with their money or had them declared incompetent and placed in care facilities. In Oregon, she stole nearly $200,000 from a 74-year-old widower named Harold Mason. By the time his children realized what was happening, Harold was in memory care, and Amanda had vanished. In Texas, she convinced an 80-year-old rancher named William Torres to sign over his property, then had him committed to a psychiatric facility for dementia that miraculously improved once he was away from her influence. The photographs showed Amanda with different hair colors and styles, but the face was unmistakably the woman who had been living in my son's house for 3 years. How did she meet Brandon? I asked. She targeted him specifically. Amanda researches obituaries and insurance settlements, then positions herself to meet recently widowed men or their sons who have inherited significant assets. She met Brandon at Frank's funeral, Carolyn. She was there deliberately. I remembered that day with new horror. Amanda had been so kind, so supportive, appearing at the reception with flowers and offering to help with arrangements. She had seemed like an angel during our darkest time, and Brandon had been grateful for her warmth and assistance. She married him to gain access to Frank's life insurance settlement and your financial assets, Dorothy continued. Everything that's happened since has been planned and executed with precision. Dorothy then showed me the evidence she had been gathering with the help of bank investigators and federal authorities. The financial exploitation you've experienced fits Amanda's established pattern perfectly. But here's what she doesn't know. I've been working with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit for the past 3 weeks. The federal investigation had been tracking Amanda across state lines for 2 years. My case had provided them with the evidence they needed to build charges not just for my exploitation, but for her previous crimes as well. We've been monitoring her communications, her financial transactions, and her preparations for having you declared incompetent, Dorothy explained. Every document she's forged, every dollar she's stolen, every lie she's told is documented and admissible in court. Dorothy had also been working with Adult Protective Services, who had opened a case file based on the evidence of elder abuse and financial exploitation. Social workers had been conducting their own investigation, including interviews with the children, whom they had determined were safe and could remain with me as their legal guardian once Amanda and Brandon were removed from the home. But Dorothy, Brandon is involved too. Hess, my son. I know, honey. That's the hardest part. Brandon is facing serious charges as well, but the evidence suggests he was manipulated by Amanda initially, then became complicit as the scheme progressed. There's a difference between being a willing conspirator and being gradually drawn into criminal activity through emotional manipulation. Dorothy showed me recorded phone calls between Amanda and her previous victims, revealing her sophisticated understanding of psychological manipulation. Amanda is what law enforcement calls a long-term confidence artist. She doesn't just steal money, she destroys families and breaks down her victims' sense of reality. What happens now? Tomorrow evening, when they return from their celebration dinner, federal agents will be waiting. Amanda will be arrested on charges of elder abuse, financial exploitation, identity theft, and mail fraud. Brandon will be arrested as an accessory, though his charges may be reduced depending on his cooperation with the investigation. Dorothy placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Carolyn, I need you to understand that everything that's been done to you was calculated and deliberate. Your confusion, your self-doubt, your feeling that you were becoming a burden, were all manufactured by someone who is very skilled at psychological manipulation. You are not losing your mind, and you are not helpless. The relief I felt was indescribable. For months, I had been questioning my own perceptions and abilities, wondering if I was indeed becoming the forgetful, confused old woman Amanda portrayed me as. Learning that my instincts had been correct all along, that the manipulation had been real and documented, lifted a weight from my spirit that I had not realized I was carrying. What about Tyler and Emma? They'll stay with you. The investigation has shown they've been caught in the middle of this situation and have actually been trying to protect you. Social Services believes they'll be safest and happiest in your care, and their statements have been crucial in building the case against Amanda. Dorothy had also arranged for the recovery of my stolen assets. Every penny will be returned, plus damages and interest. Amanda's other victims will also receive restitution from assets she's hidden in various accounts. This investigation will finally bring justice for everyone she's hurt. As I drove home that evening, I felt a mixture of sadness and strength I had not experienced since Frank's death. The sadness was for the trust that had been broken, for the son who had participated in my exploitation, for the time I had lost doubting myself. But the strength came from knowing I had been right to trust my instincts, right to fight back, and capable of protecting myself and my grandchildren. The next evening, I sat in Dorothy's car at the end of the street, watching my former home through the passenger window. Tyler and Emma were beside me in the back seat, nervous but determined to see this through. We had spent the day packing their belongings and preparing for a new chapter of our lives together. At 9:37, Brandon's SUV pulled into the driveway. Through the windshield, I could see Amanda laughing at something Brandon had said, her head tilted back in the carefree manner of someone who believed her plan had succeeded perfectly. They had clearly enjoyed their celebration dinner, toasting what they assumed would be their final victory over the foolish old woman they had been manipulating for nearly 2 years. As they walked toward the front door, Brandon stumbling slightly from the wine he had consumed, federal agents stepped out of the shadows. Agent Patricia Rodriguez and Agent Michael Thompson had been waiting in unmarked cars for over an hour. Amanda Sinclair, you're under arrest for financial elder abuse, mail fraud, and identity theft, Agent Rodriguez announced, her voice carrying clearly through the evening air. I watched Amanda's face transform from confusion to shock to the cold calculation I now recognized as her true nature. There must be some mistake. My name is Amanda Patterson. We know exactly who you are, Miss Sinclair. We've been tracking your activities across 4 states for 2 years. Brandon's reaction was different. As Agent Thompson read him his rights for conspiracy and theft, I saw genuine shock and fear in my son's expression. Unlike Amanda, who immediately began planning her defense, Brandon looked like a man suddenly awakening from a terrible dream. "Where's my mother?" Brandon called out, as the agents led him toward their vehicles. "Is Carolyn safe?" Dorothy squeezed my hand, Hess starting to understand the reality of what he participated in. Amanda's arrest was swift and professional. She maintained her composure until Agent Rodriguez mentioned the evidence they had gathered from her computer and phone records. Only then did I see a crack in her facade as she realized how thoroughly her scheme had been documented and investigated. As the patrol cars drove away, Tyler, Emma, and I returned to what was now our home. The house felt different without Amanda's presence, lighter somehow, as though an oppressive weight had been lifted from every room. Over the following weeks, the legal proceedings unfolded exactly as Dorothy had predicted. Amanda was denied bail due to flight risk and held pending trial. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Financial records, forged documents, recorded conversations, and testimony from her previous victims in other states. The investigation revealed that Amanda had stolen over $350,000 from elderly victims across her criminal career. My case, with its thorough documentation and federal involvement, became the cornerstone for prosecuting her previous crimes as well. Brandon's situation was more complex. During his first meeting with his court-appointed attorney, he broke down completely and confessed to his full involvement in the scheme. He admitted that Amanda had initially convinced him I was becoming incompetent, then gradually drawn him into more serious criminal activity by making him feel he was protecting me from my own poor judgment. She showed me the documentation of Mom's confusion, Brandon told Dorothy during one of their meetings. She convinced me that Mom was getting worse and that we needed to take control of her finances before she hurt herself or lost everything. By the time I realized what we were really doing, I was already too deep in to back out without destroying my family. Brandon's remorse seemed genuine, but the damage to our relationship was profound. He had chosen to believe Amanda's lies about me, rather than trusting his own knowledge of my character and competence. He had participated in stealing my life savings and planning to have me declared incompetent. Those actions could not be undone, even if his motivations had been manipulated. However, Brandon's full cooperation with the investigation and his obvious devastation about the consequences for our relationship convinced the prosecutor to offer a plea bargain. He would serve 18 months in minimum security prison, followed by 3 years of probation and community service. More importantly, he would be required to attend therapy to understand how he had been manipulated and to develop skills for recognizing and resisting such influence in the future. The day of Amanda's sentencing was both satisfying and heartbreaking. She received 7 years in federal prison for the charges related to my case, with additional sentences for her crimes in other states to be served concurrently. More importantly, she was ordered to pay full restitution to all her victims, including myself. Dorothy had done exceptional work recovering my stolen assets. Not only was every dollar returned, but the court awarded additional damages for the emotional distress and violation of trust I had experienced. My financial security was not just restored but strengthened. Tyler and Emma adapted to our new living situation with remarkable resilience. Without Amanda's subtle manipulations and constant criticism, they flourished in ways I had not expected. Emma's confidence in school improved dramatically, and Tyler began talking about his future plans with enthusiasm I had not seen in years. "Grandma Carolyn," Emma said one evening as we prepared dinner together, "I'm glad it's just us now. The house feels happy again." Tyler nodded from his homework spot at the kitchen table. "It's like we can breathe normally again." I didn't realize how tense everything was until it stopped. 6 months after Amanda's arrest, I received an unexpected visitor, Brandon's prison counselor, Dr. Sarah Martinez, asked to meet with me about Brandon's progress in therapy. "Mrs. Patterson, your son has been working very hard to understand how he became involved in criminal activity against someone he loves," Dr. Martinez explained. "Part of his healing process involves taking full responsibility for his choices, but also understanding the psychological techniques that were used to manipulate his thinking." Brandon had asked Dr. Martinez to invite me to a family therapy session, not to ask for forgiveness, but to ensure I understood that his actions had been his choice, regardless of Amanda's influence. The meeting was difficult but necessary. Brandon was thinner, gray-haired, and obviously struggling with the consequences of his choices. But there was something different in his eyes, a clarity that had been missing for years. "Mom, I want you to know that I understand what I did to you was unforgivable," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Amanda didn't force me to betray you. She convinced me that betraying you was the right thing to do, but I chose to believe her instead of trusting my own knowledge of who you are." He paused, struggling with his emotions. "I let someone else define you as incompetent and burdensome because it was easier than standing up to her manipulation. I chose financial benefit over protecting my mother. Those were my choices, and I have to live with them forever." The Brandon, sitting across from me, was not the son who had plotted to steal my money and have me declared incompetent. This was someone who had faced the full reality of his actions and was committed to becoming someone worthy of eventual redemption. "I don't expect forgiveness," he continued. "I just want you to know that I understand now how strong and capable you've always been, and how wrong I was to let anyone convince me otherwise." I told Brandon that while I could not yet forgive the betrayal, I was glad he was getting help, and that I hoped he would emerge from this experience as someone who could rebuild his life honorably. 1 year after Amanda's arrest, Tyler graduated from high school with honors and earned a full scholarship to the state university. Emma was thriving in her sophomore year and had been elected to the student council. Our household had found its rhythm as a family of 3 people who genuinely loved and respected each other. I had also found unexpected purpose in my experience. Dorothy and I worked together to establish a support group for elder abuse survivors, helping other seniors recognize and escape financial exploitation and emotional manipulation. My story, while painful to share, had helped identify and prosecute 2 other cases of similar crimes in our community. Dr. Martinez helped me understand that Amanda's manipulation had been sophisticated and deliberate, designed to make me question my own perceptions and abilities. The fact that I had eventually trusted my instincts and sought help was a sign of strength, not weakness. Many victims of long-term psychological manipulation never recognize what's happening to them. Dr. Martinez explained, "Your ability to piece together the truth and take action probably saved not just your own life, but protected your grandchildren from growing up in a household built on deception and exploitation." Brandon was released from prison after serving 14 months, with credit for good behavior and completion of additional counseling programs. He moved to another state to begin rebuilding his life, maintaining minimal contact with Tyler and Emma through supervised visits arranged by the court. Tyler and Emma both chose to keep my last name, Patterson, rather than their father's name, as a symbol of their commitment to the honest, loving household we had built together. They had learned powerful lessons about trust, integrity, and the importance of protecting vulnerable family members. On the second anniversary of Amanda's arrest, I received a letter from Harold Mason, the Oregon widower who had been one of Amanda's earlier victims. He thanked me for pursuing justice and explained that the restitution from Amanda's conviction had allowed him to move out of the substandard facility where she had placed him and into a lovely senior community where he was thriving. "Your courage in fighting back saved all of us," Harold wrote. "Amanda would have continued destroying families if you hadn't been strong enough to expose her." As I sit in my kitchen this evening, watching Tyler help Emma with her calculus homework while dinner simmers on the stove, I feel a peace and satisfaction that seemed impossible during those dark months of manipulation and doubt. The financial security Frank and I worked so hard to build has been restored and protected. The grandchildren I love are thriving in an environment of honesty and mutual respect, and I have learned that even in my 70s, I am still capable of fighting for what's right and protecting the people I love. Most importantly, I have learned to trust my own perceptions and instincts, even when others try to convince me they are wrong. The confused, burdensome old woman Amanda tried to create never existed, except in her documentation and lies. The real Carolyn Patterson is strong, capable, and surrounded by people who value her for exactly who she is. Amanda's attempt to steal my money, my independence, and my dignity ultimately failed because she underestimated the power of love, truth, and determination. The family she tried to destroy is stronger now than it ever was before, built on a foundation of honesty rather than manipulation. Justice was not just served through the courts, but through the life we built in its aftermath. A life where every person is valued, where love is demonstrated through inclusion rather than control, and where the wisdom of experience is honored rather than exploited. The leftovers Amanda told me to finish that night turned out to be the remnants of her own deception, and I was more than happy to clean house completely. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone close to you made you question your own judgment or capabilities? How did you recognize what was happening? And what gave you the strength to trust your instincts? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is struggling with similar doubts. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult situations. And if you know someone who might benefit from hearing about the warning signs of elder abuse or family manipulation, please share this story with them. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is help each other recognize that we are stronger and more capable than others might want us to believe. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to always trust your instincts and the wisdom to surround yourself with people who celebrate your strength rather than exploit your vulnerabilities.